Welcome to Renegade Thinkers Unite, a show that will help you transform your marketing from mere messaging to programs that break the rules and make a difference. Join the movement today and learn non-traditional techniques that give you an edge. Now, here's your Chief Marketing Renegade, Drew Nizer.
Welcome to a very special episode of Renegade Thinkers Unite. My guest today is Grant Johnson, the CMO of Kofax. It's a global software company with 2,900 employees and over 25,000 customers. Now, before joining Kofax in 2013, Grant was the CMO of Pegasystems. That's where I met him first, through the CMO Club. And he held marketing positions at Toshiba, Symantec, and AST, among several others. It's pretty safe to say he knows a thing or two about B2B marketing and how it's evolved over the years. He's a major proponent of the digital transformation of business processes, a subject we'll no doubt cover as well. And I wanted to make sure before I introduce Grant, wanted to let you know I also have another guest with me today who's sort of a co-interviewer, and that's Bill, my good friend Bill Carmody. So first, welcome to the show, Grant.
Drew, it's great to be here.
And welcome to the show, Bill.
Hey, Drew, thanks so much for having me.
All right, so we're going to kick things off with, my theory, which is that there's a little bit of a renegade, sometimes a lot, but a little bit of a renegade in just about every senior marketer. And so is that true for you?
Absolutely. I think we're in a unique position right now at Kofax to look at the market with a fresh set of eyes. As I was sharing with you a little bit earlier, we're in the process of spinning off from our parent company, Lexmark. And so we have this opportunity to reinvent ourselves, so to speak. Although we have this broad portfolio of software and solutions that really represents a couple dozen acquisitions over the years, we know that we're in a customer-driven era. It's about them, not us. So we want to avoid pushing products. And instead, what we want to do is engage with our customers right from the early stages of the buyer's journey. As we know, buyers are predetermining who they'll talk to, and they have 70%, according to some statistics, have already made the decision. So you better hope to engage them early in the process. And at Kofax, we're not afraid of opening up a dialogue with our customers. In fact, we embrace the conversation. We're very fortunate on my team. We have a lot of subject matter experts and have built a strong core of writers. And together we create both meaningful content and thought leadership. And so we know we have to speak in the customer's language, not our language. And while at Kofax we have to have a voice, it's got to be authentic and it has to really be relevant to our customers' interests and concerns.
Okay, that's an interesting thing. And it occurred to me that we better explain what Kofax does, and I want you to put it in terms that I could have explained, or that Bill could explain to his mother. So can you make Kofax that simple?
We make businesses more efficient.
Okay.
We simplify and transform what we call the first mile of business. If you think about a mortgage, you've got to do all this paperwork, and then you have to submit it, or maybe you fax it. And then somebody has to review it, and then they pre-approve you, and then it gets underwritten, and then a mortgage. And it's hundreds of pages of paper. I'm taking my iPhone out now. With Kofax, you can just snap a picture, grab all the documents, we extract the information, we send it up to the processor. It all gets done in an automated, efficient fashion, and hopefully you get that mortgage or you refinance successfully.
All right. So you just make stuff more efficient, I think, is the way. And that's got to be tricky because it seems like every business has its own sort of process, and they're used to doing business a certain way, and so you sell it to a company, and right, a big company, let's say a mortgage company, wants to get into this and simplify. They still have to get their customers to use it, right? And that must make it a little tricky.
Well, sure. A lot of what we do is help the companies change their processes so that they can have more what we call straight-through processing. If they have a lot of things they do over and over, putting information into a database or recording something in a separate content repository, or connecting with the supplier so they can check the status of their invoice without having a human talk to them. We automate that, and so that makes them more efficient, but it also frees up what we all know as the knowledge workers, so they can do more value-added things like sell additional services.
That makes a lot of sense, right? Okay, so we are we're sort of solving this first mile issue. We're helping customers improve their processes, and then helping their customers improve their processes. Is there a non-traditional technique? I mean, we are on Renegade Thinkers Unite. Is there a traditional technique that you've used with success?
Actually, there is. I think we're a bit non-traditional here at Kofax in that we follow what I call an aim, ready, fire approach. I think, most people are aware of the ready, aim, fire or the crazy times when it's fire first. But over 3 years ago, when I arrived, I looked at really our practices and, how are we going to get to best in class? And digital was a key area. But I didn't have a completely baked plan on how to get there. So I hired a very strong leader. It always starts with somebody who has a vision. And together we put a roadmap on how to progressively build our digital marketing prowess over time. Since that initial start, through all the acquisitions and integration, we've gone from a little over 300 million, to more than 600 million in revenues. And along the way, we've integrated several companies. And what we've done is taken the best aspects from each of the companies, the best people, and sort of across the board improved our digital marketing capabilities. We do, as you might expect, a lot of experimenting and iterating. That's what's great about digital, right? Because not everything is going to work. And so when we strike a rich vein, like our pay per click or these annoying retargeting ads, we pour gas on those fires. And we smother out the less successful endeavors as fast as possible. I'll tell you one quick joke. If you know a good stock and it goes up, buy it. If it doesn't go up, don't buy it. The great thing about digital, you can make these decisions faster.
Yes. Well, and I'm really fascinated because you talked about sort of owning that first mile, with your customer. And as you think about your customer journey and the digital marketing that you're doing today, I'm really curious how you've taken a lot of that efficiency that you've done for your own clients and brought it home, right? And said, how can we engage with our customers in that first mile and really understand exactly what that engagement looks like? Because you have done a tremendous amount of experimentation. You've seen what's worked, what doesn't work. So tell us a little bit about when you're doing your first mile engagement with your customers, prospects that you're trying to bring in, what's really worked well for you?
Bill, that's a great question. And in retrospect, it seems so clear to me now. It wasn't that clear. We did this foundational work, my VP of Demand Generation and I and all the teams. And we figured out we had 5 key personas that we needed to work with. We have various lines of business or information decision makers. And so they have the standard thing you've seen in personas about, age and concerns and interests. And so once we figured out the personas and we validated that, we actually mapped out the journey from the initial contact and we did a content map. Awesome. And that was totally critical to not only determining how to engage successfully to get open rates, click-through rates, call me. I love, what golden on our website is, I need to speak to a salesperson now, ring the bell because that's somebody who's in the buying cycle, but it takes a while to get there. Right. And so when we map that out, another great artifact of doing that is as we built our portfolio, we realized in order to effectively reach these different vertical markets that we're in, like financial services and healthcare and government, as well as the various personas, we had to have relevant content and continually refresh that.
And what's really fascinating to me is that mapping your customer journey is such a critical importance today to sort of really understanding their needs, yet less than 30% of businesses do it. So what I really applaud you for is both identifying the fact that there's 5 personas, that they have unique differences, and then when do you ring the bell and sort of say, here is someone who's ready to talk to one of our people. So last question in terms of this sort of customer journey mapping. I love what you've done. I love that you had these personas. I love that you figured these pieces out. Once you've gone in and mapped out that journey and you've really thought through the content strategies, how are you measuring the effectiveness of the content in each of those individual prototypes? So you have 5 different profiles. How are you mapping that content to those individuals and their needs? And then how are you measuring the effectiveness so you know this content's really resonating and this other content, it might be available to them, but that's not something that's really helping them in their journey.
Bill, another great question, but not as easy one to
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah, no, that's a $1 million question.
Yeah, as attorneys like to say, it depends.
Yes.
But I'll tell you, one of the ways that is a really good proxy is really through the social media. We actually have very active social media. We do something called Go Social at Kofax. And so we encourage any field-facing staff, so sales, marketing, services, to try to engage and share content. And we have this great tool that I call push button content. I just published my second blog on a 4-part series about stepwise approach to digital transformation. It's in the 4 weeks leading up to our annual user conference, Inspire, in Nashville this year, April 23rd to 26th. And so I wanted to kind of build the story. I'll be talking about it on stage.
Right.
And so as people share that, say, hey, I've got that problem as a business. Can somebody contact me? So it's not a perfect science. There's always art, but it helps.
Okay, that's a great place to wrap up. I love the conversation about personas, and I realize that I need to have Bill on the show. He asks better questions than I do. But I wanted to make one reference. I'm going to send you back to episode 2 with Lee Applebaum, where we talked a little bit about personas, and I recently wrote another post on that. And he calls the personas, and if you can name them, it's really awesome. He calls the personas his bros and the nose. So the bros and the nose. And it's so easy to remember, but it's so easy to imagine them. So we're going to take a quick break. And when I come back, we're going to ask Grant about how he gets his marketing to stand out, and what's state of the art for him. So stay tuned. Come on back. We'll be right back.
Renegade Thinkers Unite is brought to you by Social Media Explorer, the website that explores the world of social media from the inside out. Great advice from today's leading social media columnists and experts at socialmediaexplorer.com. That's socialmediaexplorer.com. All right. My guest today is Grant Johnson, as you hopefully know because you've been paying attention. And I've got a special guest as well, Bill Carmody. So we're tag teaming. I'm almost double teaming for Grant here with questions, but he's doing a great job withstanding it, and I think he can do it for a few more minutes. So, one thing that, Renegade's logo is a saw for a reason, because marketing always has to cut through, no matter what. And but it's hard. It's really hard. What are you doing, or what's one thing that you think marketers could do today that they couldn't do 5 years ago to make sure that your marketing cuts through?
Well, it really is hard to break through. There's so many competing messages for our customers, our prospects' attention. So we really take great pains to avoid a one-size-fits-all, a random act of marketing as well that doesn't scale, and you can't measure it, and you can't improve it. So we've been working towards an integrated marketing approach. And in our campaigns, just like we talked about earlier, where you follow the buyer's journey, you have to touch people several times. I actually run what we call the teleprospecting team that takes inbound leads and creates outbound meetings and contacts. And so, that's one touch. They may first see an email. And so we want to make sure that the first touch, the email touch, the webinar touch, the events, maybe an in-person touch, all these will resonate consistently across every touch point of a given campaigns. Like a lot of companies that have a customer base across various verticals, I mentioned banking, financial services, and healthcare, but we're also in insurance and in government and what is a growing area called business process outsourcing, BPOs. And for some of these verticals like banking, what we do is frame the message around their concerns. For example, how can we help enhance the customer experience? As I was talking about earlier, banks want to open accounts faster so people can deposit money or, add new accounts faster. And as I talked about the mobile application. So that's why companies are attracted to our mobile apps. And so when we talk about, the mobile moment and we talk about mobile engagement, that's what today's customers, especially the millennials, want. And I think the other key thing I'm a tech marketer. I suppose I could have been in packaged goods. I just fell into B2B, and here I am a few years later. And what I try to get the team to do is use customer speak. It's too easy to fall in the trap of techno speak, TLAs, 3-letter acronyms, right? But the customer speak is really what helps us stand out from what I call a cacophony of competitors who are also touting their offerings.
So I'd love to expand on that just a little bit further. I think it's great. I know that even on the agency side of the business, one of the things that we struggle with to look at sort of renegade thinking is always thinking about how to speak in your customer's language, right? So, it's not even sort of how you attract your customer, but how do you make sure that they understand that you not just understand their needs, but the needs of their customers. And that's the thing is if you can actually demonstrate, say, for example, in the banking industry, that you not only can help them because of their process improvements and all those pieces, but that you really truly understand the needs of their customers in some ways better than they do, then you are that sort of expert that they can turn to as support. So how are you demonstrating that you understand the needs of your customer's customer?
Well, you must have been looking through our website to figure this out. Know that we've done this one thing, so we have great research on that. In addition to a mobile app that the customers are going to look at when they sign on to services. I'll give you another great example related to our mobile technology. There's a whole industry out there called payday loans, and most of us are fortunate that we don't ever have to go to a payday loan.
Amen.
What we did is in order to engage the customer, we showed them how we'd engage their customers. And look, the folks that walk into I won't name who the particular firm is for privacy purposes, but they show the customer simple videotape walking in, going through the whole process, reading the forms, signing the forms, giving the forms back, and ultimately you see somebody dispense what looks like $100 bills.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they retape it with a iPad, any tablet device.
Yeah.
And they show how it's half the time, it's easier to understand. We're all used to interacting with these smart devices.
Sure.
And that simple thing says, well, if we can communicate to their customers, our software must be doing some cool stuff.
You've been listening to another great interview on Renegade Thinkers Unite with Drew Neiser. But the value doesn't end there. As a listener, you can download a free ebook from Drew, Renegade Thinkers, interviews with 11 trailblazing CMOs any business can learn from. Top marketing thought leaders and proven executives from Time Warner, American Express, and Chico's, and others. Get your free copy at renegadethinkersunite.com/ebook. For listeners only at renegadethinkersunite.com/ebook.
Let's talk about what state of the art is. I mean, I know it's evolving quite a bit, but particularly in B2B, because we are in B2B software, and how are what are some of the things that you're doing in that you would consider state of the art?
Well, I think my head spins just considering the topic. With my teams, I emphasize the importance of just picking the right technology to help extend our success in the marketplace. And I was trying to once read this MarTech landscape, and it's got to be 1,000 companies.
Oh, yeah, it's ridiculous.
The fonts are so small, and the list gets grown every day. And it's like I say to the head of operations demand, you guys go figure it out. I'll agree or disagree, but I don't want to try to figure it out. But you can actually get very hyper-targeted and intentional in your marketing with the state of art. And so it is important to put the time to vet. I mentioned this social media platform, and again, I can't name who we use, but I'll tell you, we were doing pretty well, and my social team found a better platform, and it's SaaS, so we swapped out after a year. And it was just, we got more value for money, more functionality, it was easier, all the benefits you look for in technology. And it's really for any organization, it doesn't matter what size you are, you have to pick the right technology, focus on that, make it a success, adopt the tools in your time frame with your resources. People think, hey, I can do this, but you need staff, you need time, not just budget. The biggest mistake any company of any size can make is to try to have too many projects going at once, too many moving parts.
Right.
And so, but you're not precluded as a smaller company from using all the cool technology. You can be hyper-targeted. Even if you just had, say, $10K to spend, because a lot of things I do little increments of $10K, it's easy to experiment, right? You sort of try this, try that. And so we're finding really good success with certain PPC ads. And we're targeting, we know our personas, so we're targeting lookalike audiences, bringing more people to our website. We're combining our SEO, as gets improved by PPC. So it's just, learning, adapting, and there you go.
That's awesome. So one of the things so we started at the beginning of the customer journey. I want to take it all, based on what you just told me, I want to take it to the very end. How are you creating advocacy and raving fans? So you've really optimized the front end, that first mile. You've thought about sort of how your content's working. You got your social, you got your paid search. All those things are great. The problem is the minute you turn them off, it's done, right? There's no additional value other than the content you've created. So how are you then taking that one step further and helping to create advocacy from your customers so that you can attract even better prospects that are coming from the people who are loving what you've already done for them?
Well, that's absolutely key to having the start to end to continue approach. And there's two things that I've done. And I think I may bridge into another idea that would be of interest for the audience. One is I have a customer success manager. It happens to be a serial offender. I actually hired the same person at FileNet before IBM bought us a decade ago. She went to IBM for several years. I recruited her here several years ago, and she just has this unique, emotional IQ. Loves customers, knows when their kids' birthdays, posts on their Facebook.
That's great.
And so we have hundreds and hundreds of customers, but she's just one person. So to us, and I think it's a great resource for any company, the community is a great resource because when you think about it, once you have the online presence and you have folks that can monitor it and contribute, it's one of what I call the lowest cost, highest value to stay with your customers throughout the entire lifestyle to foster this engaged community that builds brand advocates. These are the folks that can amplify your content, amplify your voice, and leverage their networks. So some influencers are more important than others. Obviously, their likability, their followership. And so their affinity towards our brand is more important because they can amplify it more broadly, right? And I would also say, don't be afraid to take an active role in this community. As we had mapped out the personas, they all have conversations, right? So you have to join that. Talk about the relevant topics, make sure you're not just talking about yourself, monopolizing conversation, and engage them on a personal level so you can connect that you understand their needs and their desires. And I also think it's important to celebrate the positive experiences. So, if somebody is willing to talk about the challenge they went through and the success they had, we want them to be a case study. They have to agree, but that's gold too.
All right. So, my producer, who's a wonderful guy by the name of Kevin Crane, says that 20-minute podcasts are really the bomb. But I think this conversation has been so interesting, I want to propose that maybe we have a part 2. So I'm going to wrap up part 1, and then we'll come back and we'll have a redux here. So a couple of things that I heard and is one, and I love this idea of aim, ready, fire. Most of us know it as ready, aim, fire, but aim, ready, fire. What does that really mean? Well, we're aiming, right? We say we have a target, and Grant talked about his personas, his 5 personas, and then if you follow the 5 personas along, he talked about it's not about one size fits all. It's about customizing by each of those personas. It was interesting that as you're customizing by this, you're creating all sorts of content. That quickly got you into employee advocacy. That's an area that I'd like to pick up on in the next episode. But there was a few other things, and I just want to remind you all of that because I think it's so important in the scheme of things. When you talk about state of the art, it's a willingness to experiment and try new things, fail fast. You take a few $1,000 and you try it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, walk away and start again. And then I think the last thing that we talked about today was it's not enough to acquire the customer. We need to obviously keep them and get them excited enough to do your bidding. So with that, I want to thank Grant and Bill, special guest and interviewer, for a terrific episode of Renegade Thinkers Unite. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Drew.
Me too. Thanks so much, Drew.
And that wraps it up for here. We'll stay tuned for next time.
This has been Renegade Thinkers Unite, but it doesn't end there. Just go to renegadethinkersunite.com for more and subscribe to the show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll talk with you next time on Renegade Thinkers Unite.